Reading through the Bible in a year, December 19th, 2nd Chronicles, chapters 22 through 23, Revelation 10, Zechariah 6, and John chapter 9. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place. For the band of men who came with the Arabs to the camp had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, the son of Joram, king of Judah, became king. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, granddaughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. And he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father, to his destruction. He also walked according to their counsel, and went with Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to wage war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. But the Arameans struck Joram. So he returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which they caused by striking him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. And Ahaziah, the son of the son of Jehoram. There we go. So many Jeroboam names in here, getting confusing. Continuing on. And Ahaziah, the son of Joram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was sick. Now, the downfall of Ahaziah was from God, in that he went to Joram. And when he came, he went out with Joram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom Yahweh had anointed, to cut off the house of Ahab. Now it happened, when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers attending to Ahaziah, and killed them. And he sought Ahaziah, and they caught him while he was hiding himself in Samaria. And they brought him to Jehu, put him to death, and buried him. For they said, He is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahweh with all his heart. So there was no one of the house of Ahaziah to retain the power of the kingdom. Now, Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son had died, so she rose and destroyed all the royal seed of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeath, the king's daughter, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and put him and his nurse in the bedroom. So Jehoshabeath, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so she did not put him to death. So he was hidden with them in the house of God 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. Now, in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took commanders of hundreds, Azariah the son of Joram, Ishmael the son of Johanan, Azariah the son of Obed, Maaseiah the son of Adiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zechri, and they entered into a covenant with him. And they went around Judah and gathered Levites from all the cities of Judah, and the heads of fathers' households of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. Then all the assembly cut a covenant with the king in the house of God, and Jehoiada said to them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as Yahweh has spoken concerning the sons of David. This is the thing which you shall do. 1/3 of you, of the priests and Levites who come in on the Sabbath, shall be gatekeepers at the thresholds, and 1/3 shall be at the king's house, and 1/3 at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of Yahweh. But let no one enter the house of Yahweh except the priests and the ministering Levites. They may enter, for they are holy. And let all the people keep the charge of Yahweh. And the Levites will surround the king, each man with his weapons in his hand, and whoever enters the house, let him be put to death, and be with the king when he comes in and when he goes out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And each one of them took his men who were to come in on the Sabbath, with those who were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest did not dismiss any of the divisions. Then Jehoiada the priest gave to the commanders of hundreds the spears and the shields and the small shields which had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he caused all the people to stand, each man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, and by the altar, and by the king's house, and around the king. Then they brought out the king's son and put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, Long live the king. Then Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king. So she came into the house of Yahweh to the people, and she looked, and behold, the king was standing by his pillar at the entrance, and the commanders and the trumpeters were beside the king. And all the people of the land were glad, and blew trumpets, the singers with their musical instruments leading the praise. Then Athaliah tore her clothing and said, Treason, treason! Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the commanders of hundreds who were appointed over the military force, and said to them, Bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her, let him be put to death with the sword. The priest said, You shall not put her to death in the house of Yahweh. So they laid hands on her, and when she arrived at the entrance of the horse gate of the king's house, they put her to death there. Then Jehoiada cut a covenant between himself and all the people and the king, that they would be the people of Yahweh. And the people came to the house of Baal and tore it down, and his altars and his images they broke in pieces, and they killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And Jehoiada placed the assignments concerning the house of Yahweh in the hand of the Levitical priests, whom David had divided by lot over the house of Yahweh, to offer the burnt offerings of Yahweh, as it is written in the law of Moses, with gladness and singing according to the order of David. And he caused the gatekeepers of the house of Yahweh to stand, so that no one would enter who was in any way unclean. And he took the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the house of Yahweh. And they came through the upper gate to the king's house, and they sat the king upon the royal throne. So all the people of the land were glad, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword. Now Revelation chapter 10. Once again, questions, concerns, the notes are here for you. Then I saw another strong angel coming down out of heaven, clothed with a cloud, and the rainbow was upon his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little scroll which was open, and he placed his right foot on the sea and his left on the earth, showing he has dominion over both. And he cried out with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. When he had cried out, the 7 peals of thunder uttered their voices. When the 7 peals of thunder had spoken, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, Seal up the things which the 7 peals of thunder have spoken, and do not write them. Then the angel, whom I saw standing on the sea and on the earth, lifted up his right hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things in it, and the earth and the things in it, and the sea and the things in it, that there will be delay no longer. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, then the mystery of God is finished, as he proclaimed good news to his slaves, the prophets. Then the voice which I heard from heaven, I heard again speaking with me, saying, Go, take the scroll which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth. So I went to the angel, telling him to give me the little scroll. And he said to me, Take it and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. And I took the little scroll out of the angel's hand, and I ate it. And in my mouth it was sweet as honey, and when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And they said to me, You must prophesy again, about many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Now, Zechariah chapter 6. Then I lifted up my eyes again and saw, and behold, 4 chariots were coming forth from between the 2 mountains, and the mountains were bronze mountains. With the first chariot were red horses, the second chariot black horses, with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot dappled horses, all of them mighty. Then I answered and said to the angel who was speaking with me, What are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said to me, These are the 4 spirits of heaven, going forth after standing before the Lord of all the earth, with one of which the black horses are going forth to the north country, the white ones go after them, and the dappled ones go forth to the south country. Now, the mighty ones went out, and they sought to go patrol the earth. And he said, Go patrol the earth. So they patrolled the earth. Then he cried out to me and spoke to me, saying, See, those who are going to the land of the north have caused my spirit to have rest in the land of the north. The word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Take an offering from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobijah, and Jediah. And you come the same day, and come into the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, where they have come from Babylon. And take silver and gold, and make an ornate crown, and set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Then you will say to him, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, Behold, a man whose name is Branch, capital B, Branch, talking about Jesus. And he will branch out from where he is, and he will build the temple of Yahweh. Indeed, it is he who will build the temple of Yahweh. And he will bear the splendor and sit and rule on his throne. Thus he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between the 2 offices. Now the crown will become a memorial in the temple of Yahweh to Helam, Tobijah, Jediah, and Hen, the son of Zephaniah. And those who are far off will come and build the temple of Yahweh. And it will happen if you utterly listen to the voice of Yahweh your God. There's all the notes. And now John chapter 9. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Jesus answered, Neither this man nor his parents sinned. But not saying that they were completely without sin. He's saying that nobody sinned to cause this thing to happen. That was a very common thing at that time. Once again, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but the thing that happened to him being born blind, was so that the works of God might be manifested, revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me, as long as it is day. Night is coming, when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground, made clay of the saliva, and rubbed the clay on his eyes, and said to him, Go, and wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated, sent. So he went away and washed, and came back seeing. Therefore, the neighbors and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, Is not this the one who used to sit and beg? Others were saying, This is he. Well, still others were saying, No, but he is like him. But he kept saying, I am the one. Again, the implication of Jesus taking the clay and putting it in his eyes is that he created eyeballs for him. Something only God can do. This is calling back to when God created humanity. How did he do so? But out of the clay of the ground. Same thing. Continuing on. Verse 10. So they were saying to him, Well, how then were your eyes opened? He answered, The man who was called Jesus made clay, rubbed my eyes, and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went away and washed and received sight. And they said to him, Where is he? He said, I don't know. He was blind, and Jesus probably left. Now they brought to the Pharisees the man who was formerly blind. Now, it was a Sabbath day. Dun, dun, dun. When Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes, they were already angry at him, right? So the Pharisees also were asking him again how he received his sight. And he said to them, He applied clay to my eyes, and I washed, and I see. So then, some of the Pharisees were saying, This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath. But others were saying, How can a sinful man do such signs? And there was a division among them. Therefore, they said to the blind man again, What do you say about him, since he opened your eyes? He said, Well, he is a prophet. Then the Jews, capital J Jews, this is the ruling class of Jews, did not believe it of him that he was blind and had received sight, until they had called the parents of the very one who had received his sight and questioned them, saying, Is this your son who you say was born blind? Then how does he now see? Remember, everybody knew, and this had been openly talked about in chapters 7 and 8, that the people, even before that, chapter 6 brought it up as well, that the people in Jerusalem, the ruling class of the Jews, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, they all wanted to arrest Jesus because he was doing things on the Sabbath. It was causing confusion for them. They expected him to be the Christ, which he is, but they expected him to come in as a ruling, conquering king, not as some religious leader. So when Jesus shows up as a religious leader, it's throwing them off, especially because he's going against their man-made traditions. Now, the Sabbath laws are not man-made traditions, but their interpretation of them was. And Jesus was leading them to question these things that they had created for themselves. Now, knowing this, the people were afraid, and rightly so. They didn't want Jesus to show up and start changing things. But they also, and this is kind of the biggest deal, that the people were afraid because they knew that anybody who claimed that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, they were to be cut off from the synagogue. And if you're cut off from the synagogue, as later happens throughout the book of Acts, and then through the letters that come afterward, we can see that Christians who claim Christ are immediately cut off. These are Jews who are immediately cut off from the synagogue. And association with these people could lead you into being questioned as to your or where your strength lies, whether it's in the law of Moses, which Christianity is built upon, or whether it is upon Jesus as the Christ, as the Messiah. So everybody was afraid of the Jews because of this, and his parents are now being questioned about this. That's where we come into verse 20. So his parents answered and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But how he now sees, we do not know, or who has opened his eyes, we do not know. Ask him, he is of age, he will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone confessed him, Jesus, to be the Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. You lose your access to the synagogue. Most likely, if you had a job, you would lose your job. You would lose many things because of this. For this reason, his parents said, He is of age. Ask him. Therefore, a second time they called a man who had been born blind and said to him, Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He then answered, Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. So they said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? And he answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to listen again? Do you want to become his disciples too? They reviled him and said, You are his disciple, But we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he is from. The man answered and said to them, It is a marvelous thing that you do not know where he is from, and he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he listens to him. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered and said to him, You were born entirely in sins, and you are teaching us? So they put him out. Again, that same idea that people who have things happen to them, have bad things happen to them, well, they must have been born in sin. Therefore, that's why they have these struggles. Just applying the same thing here again. Verse 35. Jesus heard that they had put him out, and after finding him, he said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered and said, Well, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? And Jesus said to him, You have both seen him, because he made him see, and he is the one who is talking with you. And he said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. And Jesus said, For judgment I came into this world, so that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard these things said, and said to him, Are we blind too? And Jesus said to them, If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, We see. Your sin remains. Note also that he worshipped Jesus, and Jesus didn't stop him. Jesus is God. All right, that is all for today. That is all the reading and all the notes. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Hold the word of the Lord.